Right, here's how to record a bass guitar or a guitar. Now we could do this in the control room. We could have the bass player or the guitarist in here, and we could have the engineer here doing the recording, but because the bass has got quite a long neck and it's a bit of a bigger instrument and we're going to have a bit more equipment, it gets a little bit tight in here. So what we're actually going to do is we're going to use the Passthrough, which is this piece of equipment here, and we're going to have our bass player sitting out here to record. And that also means that the engineer can shut the door to the control room, and it's all going to be nice, neat, self-contained, and we'll all be ready to go. So using the Passthrough, all the Passthrough is it's a box on one end with lots and lots of different inputs and a cable that runs through the wall of the studio, through the other side and to here. So anything that you plug in on this side, there is a matching port on the other side, okay? Now, I leave the Passthrough permanently set up with 3 feeds because we don't generally need more than that, so it's all ready for us to go. So you'll notice that these are going to be inputs, right? This is an output for headphones. We'll talk more about that later. But these here, I've labelled them with blue labels, 1 and 2, okay? And you can see there 1 and 2 on there, which means that they correspond to 1 and 2 on here. Nice and straightforward. Okay, those 2 XLRs are always there and they run behind, come through, and the other end are here. Okay, now we're actually only going to need 1 input for this because we're just recording a single bass. Okay, so I'm going to take number 1, put 2 back. I'm going to put 1 into channel 1 of the interface, just like I did with the vocal setup. Okay, so I'm going to put that in there. So that means that anything that I plug into this input out here, input 1, is now going to be ready to go into input 1 of the interface. Okay, that's the first step. Let's talk about headphones while we're here. Okay, so there is a blue headphone output from the mixer. That's always there. Again, running down the back of the Studio Mac, okay, and coming to number 3. You can see it says phones, headphones. So number 3. So number 3 is a permanent headphone output, right? Permanent headphone output ready for us to use. And I've put the right adapter in there so that we can plug in a jack-to-jack cable for our headphone amp. You've seen this when we did the drum setup. We're going to need headphones out here so that the bass player can hear what they're recording along to. I mean, communication isn't such an issue. You don't really need talk back. You can just open the door or talk through the window. But still, you need to be able to hear backing tracks and that kind of thing. So let's actually get that set up first. So there's a jack-to-jack cable that lives up here, and that is for headphones. Okay, so I'm going to plug that in. Please don't take this adapter out, it lives there permanently. Okay, now our headphone amp, we've done this before, so what did we say? We said top right, plug that in. We're going to need some power. I've put a plug tower here, which again lives there all the time, so you've got access to power on that kind of thing. Plug that in. Okay, checking we've got power on the headphone amp. Check the levels on channel 1, that's what we're going to use. Okay, that's almost ready. Of course, we need a pair of headphones. Okay, put that there, ready for whoever's playing the bass. Plug into channel 1, job done. Okay, so that's headphones. That means that anything that's now played on the Mac is going to be able to be heard through that set of headphones. Nice and straightforward monitoring setup. To actually get the bass to record, we're going to use something called a DI. Now, DI stands for various different things depending on who you're talking to. I always think it refers to direct input. Okay, DI, direct input. Some people say direct injection. Some people say direct interface. The crucial thing is direct. What we're going to do is we are going to connect the output of the bass, right, the output of the bass, straight to the interface. We're not going to use a microphone, right? We're going to go direct from the instrument into the Mac that we are recording, right? Now, we have 4 DIs in the recording studio, okay? We have this red one, 2 of those, and this black one, 2 of those. These are different, right? You can tell by looking at them. This red one, this is called an active DI. The black one, this is called a passive DI. What that basically means is that this one has its own power supply. This one can run on phantom power, or it can run on a 9-volt battery. This one doesn't have any kind of power supply, and we use them for different applications. So an active DI is usually used when you have a passive source. Okay, a passive source is something which doesn't have its own power. So a bass doesn't have batteries or anything in it. Okay, it's a completely acoustic instrument apart from some pickups. Okay, on its own, it doesn't have any kind of power, so it is passive. That is why we use an active DI. I'll get to another video where we talk about how to do a piano. Now, this piano, digital piano, has its own power supply. This is an active source. So this will use a passive DI. But for the moment, we're going to use the active DI. Okay, so I'm going to put that there next to the headphone amp. And let's get the connection ready for the DI into the interface, first of all. So on one side of the DI, we have a male XLR port. On the other side, we have jack cables. So to connect to the interface, we're going to use the side that has the XLR. Don't worry about all of the extra switches and buttons. They should be in the right place for you because we don't tend to mess around with them too much. But I'm going to need an XLR cable. Now, as I said before, there's one permanently left in the studio for vocal recordings, and it's perfectly suitable for this as well. So, female end of the XLR. Plug that in. Male end of the XLR is going to go to the pass-through, channel 1. So we've now got a connection from the DI through the pass-through, out the other side of the pass-through, into port 1 of the interface. Okay, all ready to go. Marvellous. Now we need an instrument cable or a jack-to-jack cable, right? We're only going over a short distance, so it's fine to use an unbalanced cable for this, right? It's absolutely fine. So 2 ends of the jack-to-jack cable. Inputs. Okay, there's something called a link there, which is if you want to connect an amp as well so the bass player can hear themselves live, but we haven't got very good amps at the moment, so we don't tend to use amps. We could use amps for recording both of these instruments. We could stick a microphone on an amplifier, but because our mics aren't very good, DI is a much better solution at this stage. And we're pretty much done. All we then do is plug into the bass, okay, and we have everything that we need to record bass. So instrument cable into the DI, DI into the pass-through, pass-through into channel 1. Setting it up on Logic is exactly the same as for vocals and for drums, and leveling it is exactly the same as well. You're looking for -18, looking for a nice consistent signal when the bass player is playing. And that is how to use the pass-through and how to set up a bass recording or a guitar recording.